Alright, so I'm just going to cut my trousers out now on the fabric. If you're going to cut stripes or checks, please, I did say on one of my earlier little vlogs, make sure your stripes are matched up the straight as much as you can. Because once you cut them out, make them up, if they're off, they'll be lopsided, they'll look terrible. So make sure, especially when you've got prominent stripes and checks. So get your ruler and just make sure they're pretty much straight. And you go vertically and horizontally, you go across and just make sure they're pretty much lined up, it's pretty straight, okay? Try and get good results with whatever you're making up. Try and be as professional as you can, even though it's for yourself, you know, take pride in your work and they'll look beautiful. So now, here we have. Remember, I drafted the top side out. So there's my center line. So I'm going to put this with one of the stripes. So always place it. The placement of your pattern is vital, how it's going to look. So this will be my crease line, this white stripe. Can you see? So this white stripe there will be my crease line. So that's where I'm going to put it there. I'm going to put it there, and there we have it. I'll just put my... People get weights. I don't bother buying weights. Just get whatever you got. Cans of beans, whatever cans you got, you know, scissors, whatever you got. I mean, I've got a dispenser which I use, quite a heavy little dispenser. I put that down as well. So just make sure everything is level. There we go. That's fine. I'm going to bring that up because I don't want the stripe to be on the actual waist there. That's fine now. You can strategically place it so everything is level. And that's going to be fine. Now what I do is a tip, if you're working with stripes, see my knee notch there, my knee notches, I'm going to put that exactly in the middle of the stripe across. So that will be my guide when I'm going to be stitching the other sides up on the underside. That'll be exactly in the middle, and there we have that. There we have it, right in the middle. So I'll place that there, that's fine. Now, I always cut just one side out, never two. I know some tailors do, I don't. Because if you're a millimetre out, especially when you've got stripes like this, it'll throw everything out. So I always cut to get my chalk. So always use a sharp chalk if you can. And remember, I was saying to you, an easy way of going around your patterns, because most of you will be using commercial patterns which are really flimsy, not very good. Get your ruler, put it on the edge of the pattern. Can you see? And it's really fast. And that will ensure, even going around the curves, you're fine. Can you see? And look at that. There we go. And I'll just continue down here. So always take your time, you know, don't rush anything, please, you know. You've got to be as accurate. Good pattern cutting is good sewing is good pattern cutting. So take pride in your work. I'm going to use a different chalk for that. That's going along the white. You won't be able to see that. So just make sure you just take your time. You're not rushing, you're not in the Grand Prix, you know, you're not in a race, 100-metre dash, you know, just take your time, please. Okay, and you'll be fine. Now I'm going to tell you about inlays in a minute, which I do. So if you're a beginner or you're not well accustomed to making trousers, always make a mock-up in cheap fabric. And always try and make it up in the fabric in a similar weight you're going to be using in your real fabric. Don't use a flimsy piece of cotton if you're going to use tweeds or heavy weight, because you want to see how it's going to hang. So you want to replicate that kind of weight, really. That's what you should be doing. And just, I mean, if you're using stretch fabrics, you've got to use stretch fabrics for the mock-ups. Don't use woven, that doesn't stretch. You won't get an accurate reading of your mock-up, and it'll be terrible. So, but us professionals, I'll show you, we actually cut As I said before, I would have drafted this pattern onto the fabric, but because I'm making for my show, I'm making many patterns. I've made the pattern to make sense. My dart, I put what we call a castle. I'm going to show you little tips and tricks. So I'm going to put a little rectangle up there, and I call that the castle. And that's what I do now. That's fine there now. That's okay. That's fine. That's all right there. Just make sure that's fine. Just slightly moved at the bottom. Just going to just fracture bring that back in. Should be fine. Right. Okay. That's fine. So I should have actually notched there, but I know it's about. I'll measure that anyway. So what I'll do is I'll just get my little awl there, and I'll just mark underneath, because I should have drilled it, what we call a pattern drill, and got it's fine. Well, what you can do, put a little hole in your dart at the end of your dart, get a piece of chalk, can you see there, and just with your thumb, just rub off some of the chalk, and then press it, and you've got your mark inside. Another tip of the day for you. There we go. So there we have that. Now, so that's been drawn out now. Now what we do now, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something now. Get in the middle of the dart there, which is there. Put that down there. Just draw my darts in. It's fine now. That's fine. Now, I always leave an inlay, just like you're making a mock-up. Just pan that this way for you here. So here is my waistline here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come, because this what actually waistline is shaped. It's got to go over the hips. Now, I'm going to leave an inch inlay at the top, just in case, because I've seen some sewers and they've got a tightness under the crotch. Always leave an inlay. So I'm going to leave an inch inlay on top of here. Should be adequate on the top of this top side, and I will leave an inch on my underside. So they'll marry up together exactly. That'll be my inlay. That's the extra, just in case your crotch length is too short. Can you see? And I'll thread mark these. Remember, I was telling you about thread marking? You call them tailor tacks. That's extra. Can you see? That's fine. Okay, now on the hem we leave about 3 inches, 2-3 inches, and that will be trimmed off to once you've got the length right. I'll do about 2. Yeah, I'll roughly about 2.5 inches extra. That'll be trimmed off. Usually we'll leave about 1.5 inches in. Some tails will leave 2 inches in. We can just put 2.5 inches on the hem. That was my hem allowance. That's my inlay on the hem. So we'll just mark that in there. And then, so that'll be fine there. That's fine there. Because these are what we call straight cut legs, because the knee and the hem are the same width. So if the leg tapers in, you'd actually on the hem you'd actually shoot it out. But you need the extra. When it turns up, it will be flush. But because these are straight cut leg, I don't need to worry about that. Now, vitally important, which I forgot to mark, remember, the knee, because when you're making up trousers, I can find my trousers. 1 second, please. When you're making up trousers, you've got to have them balanced, and because you've got such a long seam on both sides, sometimes you'll twist it as you sew down. So always, these are your balance points, your knee notches. Can you see that? And sometimes I'll stitch from the knee down, and then I'll stitch from the knee up, and that's what I do sometimes. So I don't do it all in one go. Sometimes I will, sometimes I don't, depending on the fabrics and if they're good to work with or they're quite difficult sometimes. So always notch up your knees and you put them together when you're stitching the underside. Pin them together if you want to or whatever, but use your knee as your balance mark for your trousers, and they will not go out, because sometimes if you're out it will twist the trousers, so just be careful. And everything's got to be on grain, really important. You can see these trousers are totally on grain now, so that's that sorted there now. So I'm just going to cut this out now. Didn't put this side seam in. I can't see the side seam because I'm working with tweeds. There we go. Right, so I'm going to just trim off. I'm just going to cut now, only the top layer, remember. Make sure you got some really good shears, scissors please. You don't want to be skimping and getting cheap, nasty scissors. They're not good. So I'm just going to cut this out and I'll get back to you.